Greetings, my excellent friend.
Welcome to Heavy Metal
History.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Heavy Metal History Podcast. As usual, I'm Dustin, and all the way from Beyond Thunderdome, Mad Matt is with us as usual.
Yeah, g'day everyone. But Matt, Dustin, you need to find some more Australian films. In fact, I'll link you to a couple of films that I think you really need to watch. Because if we want to keep this thing going, then expand the horizons, as they say. Go beyond the Thunderdome.
I feel like I could get a little bit more out of the Mad Max movies, but yeah, we could do some Chopper, a little bit of.
You seen Chopper?
Oh yeah, god damn.
Oh mate, how fucking good's Chopper?
It's fucking amazing.
There's this other film that Merrick Banner's in, which you need to see. It's actually his first film. It's called The Castle.
Okay.
It's a comedy. Basically just about like how a bank wants to take a man's like house, and it is some of the funniest, most like uniquely Australian film that's probably ever come out.
All right, yeah, I've heard he was a comedian before he was like a serious actor, so that's awesome. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, I'll try to find you a link online to watch it. It's awesome.
Shit, yeah. Yeah. So this week we have a few things to talk about. Not a ton of stuff. No guests this week. Just me and Matt doing our usual thing. So we got 3 records that all came out in March of 1987, 30 years ago. Some decent records. One really good record. At least in my opinion. I'm sure obviously other people would disagree, and that's fine.
And there's one album that you mentioned we're talking about today that really hit me out of left field that I hadn't listened to in like 15 years.
Oh shit, okay. And
yeah, like you hit the one you said, like you hit me up saying, oh yeah, we're going to talk about this, and I'm like, I haven't heard that in forever. And then on the way home from work today, listening to it, and I'm like rocking out on the train. It's like, yeah, this is awesome. It was basically just like re-listening to something listening to something you never heard for the first time.
Yeah. Oh my god, I love that feeling, man. I've had that happen multiple times where I've just like stopped listening to something for whatever reason, and then you know, you'll revisit it and you're like, oh my god, this is like the first time I've heard this record. You get that feeling back, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. And another thing, we are gonna retread a little bit of ground in this episode. We're gonna revisit Anthrax's Among the Living, just because when we had Derek on, we didn't really go too in-depth about the record, and there's actually a lot of cool shit to talk about with that record, so we're going to kind of revisit that at the end of the episode. That's the last one we're going to talk about. But getting to the first one, we're going to talk about Overkill's Taking Over. Came out March 1987, just like all these records. This is their sophomore record, so it's their second record. It's definitely thrash metal.
Yeah.
But there is definitely a lot of punk rock influence, and even the band themselves will tell you like how much they are influenced by punk rock. And I mean, I know we've said it on the past few episodes how much those genres go hand in hand. So it's cool when you have a band that's like, yeah, man, we love punk rock and we wanted to put it in our thrash metal songs.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something, this record.
Yeah, it's it's funny because talking about the punk thing and kind of what they were doing, the singer Bobby, he was like talking about how, you know, they all grew up in the 70s. So if you take the 70s punk rock scene that was exploding in New York and the new wave of Nawabum, I'm not even gonna say it, just Nawabum,
yep.
And you kind of put that into a bag and you mix it out. Whatever came out of that would be Overkill. So they've always kept that kind of attitude and energy, and it definitely shows. A lot of these songs are like, you know, they're definitely thrashy and fast, but they also have like kind of that punk rock, you know, rhythm to it a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we often talk about, or I often talk about, where it's like you can tell where music has been created, where it's been recorded, by the style of it. And this, to me, being an outsider, definitely feels New York to me.
Yeah,
it definitely feels New York punk. It has a real kind of like, you know, like the whole like Anthrax vibe to it. You can really tell that it is like East Coast thrash instead of West Coast thrash.
Yep. Yeah, there's a huge sound difference as far as like the. I mean, well, not huge. It's definitely it's got its own thing.
It's subtle but noticeable.
Yeah, yeah. You could definitely put on two different bands from the coast and be like, oh, I know where that's from.
Yeah, within like 10 seconds, you know where it's from.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessarily like a thing where it's speed over technicality, but it's something that's just a little bit different.
I think it's more of that kind of that punk rock. It's a little bit more in your face.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's it feels like it's got that kind. It's really high energy. It's got that kind of that fun aspect to it.
Yeah, a lot of like catchy stuff in it too. To be honest, especially with this record. I mean, this record isn't necessarily like the most beloved in their discography, from what I understand. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But there are songs on this record, Wrecking Crew especially, that's like it's considered a seminal song, and they play it in like all their sets. So there are songs from this record that are very like memorable, but I think there's records that get like higher rated and have been on the Billboard higher than this record has or was.
Yeah, and even if just going into this record for the first time, those vocals, man.
Yeah, they're not. It's funny because in reading about this, the singer Bobby Ellsworth, he was saying that he took singing lessons between Feel the Fire and this album, just so he could learn how to sing correctly, because he had a bunch of polyps on his throat from kind of like not really knowing how to sing, and that so he wanted to like learn how to sing better, and he was kind of saying that when you do that, the polyps, if they're not like really bad, they kind of wear themselves away, and using your vocal cords correctly. So he said between 86 and 87 he started to learn how to sing correctly, but pretty much every review you read about this record is just how bad and dreadful the vocals are compared to how they are now, that it's like it's so different.
Yeah, like this was something that like I hadn't listened to in a while, and going back into it was like, oh, that's right.
Yeah, when I listened to it earlier today, I put it on and I was like, all right, all right, I remember this. And then when the vocals started, I was like, fuck, man, I don't know if I could listen to this whole thing. And then I just let it go, and then eventually like it was just kind of background noise, like it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like.
Yeah, it's like all of the music is it carries it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I'd say the music is what kind of makes the whole album. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, like especially like the rhythm section in this album, I really did enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of guitar solos, but there's a couple.
Yeah, but like that's. Yeah, but it's one of those things where it's like, a guitar solo doesn't need to be in everything, and if it suits the song, it suits the song. And if it doesn't, why put it in there? And I really feel like that this album really did speak a lot to that kind of that punk rock, or that New York punk rock we were talking about earlier. So
yeah,
and also this album cover, I'm just looking at it now.
It's not a good album cover.
No, it's one of the most, like, I basically had a bit of a laugh, and like when I was looking at this again, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, 1987.
Yeah,
First Blood Part 2 would have just come out.
I do wonder who came up with the idea for the record cover, because I couldn't really find anything about it. But man, it's one of those things where it's like somebody had a horrible idea, or they had no money to do a record cover, and that's what they went with, and it just looks like a mess. Yeah,
like it looks like I don't know, like something you'd probably go, like, it looks like a photo of like a 16-year-old kid in 1980 going to a Halloween party dressed as like Rambo.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good description of it.
It's like, oh, we've got 4 Rambos at this party.
They cloned him.
Yeah.
It's Rambo in space, and they just cloned him.
Yeah, it's like, when you go to like a Halloween party, like just any time, and there's always like the flavor of the month. Like last year, there was like 7 Harley Quinns. You'd never see it like any one time.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like that.
It's a good point. I wonder if that's what they were trying to go for. Just like, yeah, man, let's all look like John Rambo.
This American badass, man.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen the cover, just Google it real quick. I mean, I'm sure we'll post a picture of it like on our social media stuff, but it's pretty bad.
Yeah, no.
Their other covers got better as they went along, and not only that, I'm pretty sure it was Overkill. They had that skull with bat wings logo, right? Yeah.
That's them. Even in the stuff that comes out now, like they're still consistently putting out records.
Yeah.
Like I'm honestly surprised at the longevity of this band.
Yeah, I don't want to say I'm surprised. They're definitely not one of the bands that come to mind immediately when you think of like the big four of like thrash metal and everything. But they've always kind of been there in the background just enough to kind of like make it by. And not only that, like actually put out some really solid records in between that time that kind of get overlooked a little bit.
Yeah, they're real quiet achievers.
Yeah. I mean, they talked about. I was reading something else. They were kind of talking about in the mid '90s when metal kind of went away. So everybody thinks, but if you really look for it, metal really never went away. But they were talking about just like how everything kind of got pushed back to the underground, and they were like, well, that's okay. We came from the underground. That's home for us. We don't care. Like that's where we feel the most familiar. So, I think they had enough good stuff and a solid discography to keep them relevant to where they never really went away.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I may have actually seen Overkill at a festival once. I honestly can't remember, but they really do seem to have a cult like following. Like people that like Overkill fucking love Overkill.
Yeah, I've never been like a huge fan, but I mean, if it comes on, I'm not gonna be like, no, I don't want to listen to this.
Yeah, like if we're talking about like the big four, I'd always consider them being like the third man up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so no, like honestly, although this isn't the world's greatest album, it didn't set the world on fire as far as anyone concerned. Like it's still worth a listen, and it's still worth the time to actually go back to it.
One thing I was gonna mention, and maybe everybody already knows this, but do you remember seeing that little like beef between them and Avenged Sevenfold over that Skull and Wings logo, where they had the shirt that said "Get your own fucking logo"?
Oh, dude, I vaguely remember this.
Yeah, because for the longest time, like that was on all of Avenged Sevenfold stuff, and I guess like Overkill found out about it, and then they made like a shirt as like a little like, hey, fuck you, stop.
Little jab, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean rightly so. Like Overkill's been using it for well over 30 years now.
Yeah.
So
no, it's that but then again, that doesn't surprise me.
No, I it happens a lot. So I guess what would you say or maybe think? So this album's been out for 30 years now. Do you think it holds up for 30 years? Because I don't personally.
Yeah, I'm gonna say no to that one.
Yeah, it like you were saying, it's definitely worth a listen and just kind of seeing like especially for a second album, man. It's not a bad second album. You kind of got to listen to it, but as far as like holding up over the years, I don't think it holds up at all. It sounds dated. It sounds 30 years old.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, like you said, it really does sound that time. They're interesting to note. The producers on this album, Alex Perales and who's it, John Zazula. They're actually pretty they've done a lot of records, especially in the 80s, like a couple of the first Anthrax albums, like Nuclear Assault, like MOD as well. So this really does have like a good pedigree behind it. It's just as you said, it's just a little bit dated. It's a little bit how's it going? But if it's it's if you find yourself down a thrash like in fucking craving thrash metal and you go down that rabbit hole on Spotify, definitely check this out.
Yeah, I think that's cool. And you're right, man. Those guys, they help kind of like pedigree that sound of thrash metal for sure. People were going to them for a reason. Just same way people would go to Scott Burns for death metal for the longest time.
Oh, dude, I can't fucking wait to talk about Scott Burns.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna get there.
Oh.
So I guess that's kind of all for that record. I think it's an interesting record for the time it came out, but I don't. If you look at everything else that came out in 1987 as well, once we kind of get down the line, this album totally gets lost. It gets overshadowed by almost everything else that came out.
Yeah, it really did. But yeah, Wrecking Crew and In Union We Stand, two absolute standout songs.
Yep, those are Wrecking Crew. They play all the time. That's like what their website's called. That's like the definitive Overkill song, which is crazy because that song stands out more than all the other songs on the album by far. At least I think so. I don't know.
No, you're not wrong.
So now we're gonna go on to a very infamous band, that's for sure. We're gonna talk about Pentagram's Day of Reckoning, also released in March. This is also Pentagram's second record. If you guys aren't aware of Pentagram or Bobby Liebling, go watch the documentary Last Days Here. It is... oh my god, I don't even really know how to describe it, except it's just a fucking horrible... Oh man, for everybody that knows about Bobby Liebling, they know he was not like a really cool dude. He was a huge drug addict, and watching this documentary and seeing like he's at the bottom of the barrel, in this documentary, and like his addiction, and it's really fucking bad, and it's kind of what tore the band apart, even though they really don't talk about it or bring it up whenever they kind of talk about like the band breaking up many times over the years. But yeah, he's a huge addict. I don't know how he's doing now. I'm pretty sure he's been okay, because I hear about Pentagram playing shows like constantly now. So I would assume he's kicked his habit, and if I'm not mistaken, by the end of the documentary, he's clean. But just as a starting point, if you're not familiar with the band, go watch a documentary right now. It's called Last Days Here. It's a fucking trip, that's for sure.
Yeah, I actually have not seen that, so I think over this weekend I might watch it.
It's brutal, man. I don't know how to explain it other than that. But so besides all that stuff, besides all the shit with Bobby Liebling, Pentagram was kind of the band that helped forge the next step of doom metal. They kind of took the baton after Black Sabbath, and they were like, oh, look at this thing we found. Let's go this way with it. They kind of continued the relay race. And I think that they did a good job of picking up where Black Sabbath left off. The guitar tone's a little bit more treble. They definitely used the tone from Volume 4. If you really, really listen to it, it's not far off. They're definitely Sabbath worshiping a little bit, but they're kind of doing their own thing with it. It feels like it has a lot more, how do you say,
there's a little bit more like refined to it.
Yeah.
From what I'd say, like keeping in mind, there's this, and then there's also the reissue of this as well. And if you put how there's always like, oh yeah, there's the original record, and then there's the record remaster, and it's like, you didn't do anything. Don't try to charge me $30 and tell me this is a remastered record of this. But this honestly is one of those ones where it's a standout remaster.
Yeah, I think it's because they re-recorded everything, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So it
they did. And I honestly this was the album you were talking to me today. So, oh yeah, we're going to talk about this, and I hadn't heard this in probably 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
By God, I actually really fell in love with this album all over again.
Yeah,
I actually really like this.
I was listening to it yesterday, and I actually, there's something about the vocals and the way it fits with the music so perfectly that it's really rare, especially in doom metal, to kind of find that nice meshing of the sounds. Because you either have like the doom metal that's just straight up Sabbath worship, or you have the doom metal that's a little bit heavier in guitar tone and the vocals just sound really out of place.
Yeah, they're either too high or they're too low in the mix. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think this is a really good mesh of that. I mean, everything sounds like a doom metal band, you know? It sounds like that sound of Black Sabbath, just refined, like you were saying.
Yeah, yeah, like I say, when you think of what a fucking Pentagram would sound like, this, honest to God, is what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, the thing about this album too is like their first album was really, really raw. Like it wasn't recorded well. It kind of got rushed a little bit, but this album was like, it was a refinement of doom metal and a refinement of their first album. They kind of took everything that they did on the first album and just fixed it, made it perfect. They perfected it, and they still kept, you know, like the trademark sound of Bobby Liebling. You know, he's got sort of a lackadaisical vocal approach, if you will.
Yeah.
But, you know, the album definitely also doesn't sound like a part two of the debut. It's still, it's got the feel, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely has a feel to it. That is a sound they're going for, but it's like the next step of that sound.
Yeah, it's a little more oppressive, a little more sinister. You know, they get a little bit slower with the tempos and the riffs, and, you know, they get more doom metal sounding. You know, they figured out what they wanted to do with what they were trying to start, basically, if that makes sense.
No, that honestly makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that not only that, but these songs have a really good diversity to them.
Yeah, like no two songs sound the same.
Excuse me, I have a horrible cough right now.
Oh no.
Yeah, none of the songs sound the same, and they're really like, I mean, there's only 7 songs on this album, you know. Half of them are like kind of groovy mid-tempo doom, and, you know, the title track Madman, it's got like a more of a fuzzy, energetic approach. And then, in contrast to that, Burning Savior is like the darkest Pentagram song out there, because it kind of shifts between like foreboding acoustics and like little pounding outbursts, and it's like a 9-minute song, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, it's I really cannot recommend this album enough, and I'm not the world's biggest fan of doom metal, and that's saying something.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy doom, so I think this is definitely not only a seminal album, but an album worth listening to and an album worth checking out. I mean, it's a really good album. I would, you know, I would definitely put this on while I was like doing some art or just kind of like cleaning shit around the house, or maybe even at a party, you know, because it's not too overbearing. Like if you have people that don't really listen to metal.
Yeah, well, how about just this rock from the 80s?
Yeah, exactly. It's heavy, but not like, you know, freak people out heavy.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, they've like, and even just the album cover of this too, like it really is iconic, even though it's so simplistic and it's so minimal. It's a real iconic album. You got that pentagram with the goat.
Oh yes.
And the font. Yeah, no, you honestly can't go wrong.
Yeah, they use that on pretty much like all their stuff. Anytime you see merch, it's usually got that on there.
Yeah, it just looks cool.
Yeah, you know what's crazy, and I'm kind of jealous of bands that, you know, started way back in the day, is like they had the entire world of like cool band names and cool imagery to use, and they got to it first, and now everybody has to struggle to come up with some cool imagery or some cool band name or some gimmick,
Yeah, it's always like verb the noun, or like or nowadays it's like a plural of a word.
Yeah, everything cool is taken. It's
Yeah.
so hard, which is why I'm holding on to my cool band name idea, because nobody's done it yet, and I think it's a fucking...
Yeah, don't even fucking tell a soul.
No, I'm not gonna tell anybody. I guess one last little thing to touch on, just because of, we talked about like how much the band broke up. The guitar player Victor, he was kind of talking about how they recorded this and got it out in '87, and right around 88, 89, they were already struggling. They wanted to go out on the road, do a little bit more serious touring, but they couldn't get any support to do that. And whatever Bobby was doing with his drug stuff, they don't want to mention it. They all the band members kind of shy away from it, which is kind of weird. But that was one of their first breakups, and then they didn't get back together until like '93, I believe. So it was quite a few years until they kind of got back together and did something.
Yeah, I think it was the next album they put out was 1994's Be Forewarned.
Yeah, yep. So I mean, it's unfortunate, and if you look through their whole history, it's full of breakups and
drugs,
reunions and drugs, and it's kind of
drugs.
Unfortunate. Yeah, lots of drugs. This is one of those, I don't know what it is about doom metal bands, but drugs, like you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, if there's any other closing thoughts, we'll get to the last album we want to talk about today.
Well, I guess kind of what we've been talking about. For being 30 years old, how do you think it holds up?
This still holds up.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we talked about a couple weeks ago. With like bands like Ghost, you could show people who like Ghost and say this was a new band, and they would fucking fall in love with it easily.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this band's going on tour with Ghost. They kind of sound like them.
Yeah. Who's Pentagram?
Yeah. No, yeah, honestly, go check this out. Go check both versions out, the original and the remastered.
Yeah, I agree, because it's kind of cool to see like how they differentiate from each other and sound different. Peaceville was kind of pivotal in making their remasters happen.
Yeah.
So.
Although I think there's a thing with Peaceful on Spotify, so this record actually isn't on Spotify.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely check this out on YouTube, or just more importantly, go fucking buy it.
Yeah, buy it.
Go buy it.
Give him some drug money. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So I wanted to retouch on this album. We're going to get to the last album we are going to talk about, Anthrax is Among the Living. We didn't really get to touch on a lot of stuff when we had Derek on, and that's fine. I wasn't really worried about that. Derek had such cool shit to say about the record and like what it meant to him, that's all that really mattered. But since we're kind of giving a little bit of information this episode, there's so much cool stuff with Among the Living and like all the stuff they put into it and just the little things behind it, and so we're gonna talk about that. This is like the one that we have the most to talk about, so we kind of want to get to that.
Yeah. And
this album came out 3 days after I was born 30 years ago. March 22nd, 1987, Anthrax is Among the Living came out. So I feel old, even though I was only 3 days old. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I'm sure.
No, you're not wrong.
I'm sure everybody who was like 15 when they heard this is like, "Fuck, man, I'm old. Like, what are you talking about?"
Yeah. Oh no, man, I'm gonna live forever.
Yeah. So this is Anthrax's third album, and arguably their biggest breakthrough album, and it got them, it gained them so much popularity. And not only that, by most fans, it's their favorite record, like by far. Anytime you talk about Anthrax, it's always Among the Living. And I have to agree. This album's fucking good. There's a lot of good songs on here. There's a lot of fun songs on here.
So sorry to catch up. The thing about me and Anthrax is I do not like Joey Belladonna. I do not like his vocal delivery. I do not like his vocals. I am of the camp of the John Bush Anthrax.
Okay, that's
the
fair.
best thing that they ever did was that I think it was that record they did in like I think 1999 when it was the old Joe Belladonna songs, which are better, objectively better than the Bush songs, but Bush was singing them.
Okay. I
Um,
I don't
I'm just
remember.
going to throw that out there.
I don't remember what
Um,
record that is, but I mean, yeah, man, it's the same thing with like the two Iron Maiden singers and the two Black
yeah,
Sabbath singers. It's you can't discount either one. They both helped make the band what they are, and people have their own taste for each singer. So yeah, man, I
oh,
totally get
it's
it.
oh, sorry, no, no, it was the 2004 album, The Greater of Two Evils.
Okay,
Yeah, so I think it was like Indians, Matt, all the old classic Belladonna songs are done by Bush.
which is cool they did that, because sometimes you have to be like, hey, this guy's gonna be singing on all these songs anyways. Let's just record them so people are more familiar with his vocal delivery, and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but then I think what he would probably left the band probably like 2 years later,
Yeah.
but then came back, but then left again. I don't know. I got to see him with I've seen him like 2 times, both with the two vocalists, and yeah, they were both really good both times.
Yeah, that's the one unfortunate thing about Anthrax is their lineup changes have been notoriously like pretty bad. But I mean, what are you gonna do, man? That shit happens. It's hard.
Yeah, exactly. I think the last time I
Especially,
saw them, they played fucking TNT.
oh shit,
Joe Belladonna fucking doing an AC/DC song.
that's fucking awesome. They did that. I'm assuming because they were in Australia.
Yeah, and I think they also came out it was like they recorded it for like a cover album or something like that.
Oh, okay,
But yeah, I remember walking into their set and it was fucking the down, dun, 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 dun. Yeah,
that's fucking awesome. I love
no,
when
so
bands do stuff like that.
yeah, no, it was an absolute fucking treat. But speaking of treats, let's dive real into the fucking gems of this album.
Yeah. So the good thing about this record is it was their third album, and from what Scott Ian was talking about, they were under no pressure at all. They had no time limit for writing or recording. The way they worked back then is when there was enough songs for an album, they'd go in and do it. They never wrote more than what was necessary. So that's a good thing to have. That's a good thing to have that time to get your shit straightened out, to make sure you're going in there with the best songs you could possibly have, nothing rushed. And kind of what he was saying is like, in a way, he regrets that situation. He was saying that they were on such a roll that perhaps somebody should have persuaded us to carry on writing. And who knows what else would have came out of that, especially when you're in that zone. There's
Yeah,
a lot to be said for staying in the zone, and he's saying it was funny because like he's saying he's not criticizing what's on the album, but that the band may have benefited from being a little less hasty and finishing out the writing side, which is weird because like if they had no time limit or any of that stuff, it's kind of funny that he thinks that they rushed it.
yeah. Well, it feels like one of those things where it's like even though it was so like you were saying like no time limit, so it probably would have just been meticulously crafted.
Hmm.
It still just feels like there's a bunch of guys just like playing in a room and fucking playing and playing and playing until their fingers bled.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of like. For some reason, when I listen to this album, even though it's kind of got like a darker cover and some darker like lyrical and content themes, I just think of this as kind of like a party album. You know?
It's what we talked about with that Overkill album. I think that really is a part of a real kind of seminal thing about New York thrash metal or the East Coast thrash metal,
Uh huh.
where it's fun and it's done seriously. It's fast and it's done seriously and it's supposed to talk about like proper like real subjects, but at the same time like you can have fun to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a fun album. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, having songs that are about like Judge Dredd and just having that nice little like gang vocals of "I am the law," like that's so
You know,
fucking fun.
yeah, or fucking like a song about like John Belushi's drug addiction. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, nice fucking life. Yeah, it's brutal,
yeah.
man. So the way they kind of worked on this album is Charlie wrote most of the music, and I believe Scott Ian did the lyrics, if I'm not mistaken. And that was a process that they used on the first two albums, so it's like, why change it, I mean, it kind of makes sense. If something's not broke, don't fix it. Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And they wanted to record with Eddie Kramer, which, I mean, Eddie Kramer, he produced, like, Kiss albums, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix. I mean, that's like some of the biggest bands in the world, and influences to them as well. So, like, it's kind of cool that they were like, we want to record with this guy. And basically, I think
also while you're getting there, they also recorded with John Zazula on this album, who also worked on the we worked on the Overkill album we were previously talking about too. So
yeah,
it's a nice little segue.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I got a little stuck and I was like, wait, where am I right now in my notes? Yes, everybody, we read notes.
Yep, you got it?
I think I got it. Maybe I forgot how to read for a second. I wasn't sure. They were they were comparing, like, the biggest album at that time was Def Leppard's Pyromania, and there was a lot of, like, hype to sound like Def Leppard, but they didn't want to do that. So basically, that's why they went to Eddie.
Yep.
So they went to Eddie for that. He was an obvious choice. If you listen to what he did back in the 70s, there's a real raw, live feeling to his production. So they wanted to keep everything, like, right in your face on this record. And they wanted to go, like, just against the norm of what was popular at that time. And
yeah,
so,
and I really do think it's what I was saying earlier, where you can just tell that this album was just recorded right in like a small room where a bunch of guys were playing all night long.
Yeah, and I mean, they spent 6 weeks recording in Miami. A lot of bands going to Miami. Black Sabbath went down there a couple times, so they went down there and they mixed the album in the Bahamas. And it seems like a weird choice to go from Miami to Bahamas. And when asked, like, why they went to the Bahamas, well, they were like, well, we saw photos of Iron Maiden mixing records at the studio, and if it was good enough for them, Chris Blackwell, the man who ran their label, also owned the place. So they knew they would get it for a good price. So, it came down to, like, again, like, going where the bands that they liked had went, and not only that, just because the guy that owned their label, ran it, so it was just kind of like an easy in at that point.
Yeah, exactly. That's a real I feel like that's a real Scottian move.
Yeah, it sounds like something he would want to do, which is funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess while they were down there, they stayed in an apartment block across the road from the studio, and so there was a woman. They had a woman who cleaned their rooms, cooked their meals. They had a pub down the road, and they didn't really go check out the touristy parts. I guess everybody just thought they were just, like, partying in the Bahamas, when in fact, like, they just concentrated, like, 100% on the album. In fact, a little funny story is they were so focused on making the album that they found out U2 was actually staying nearby, and that they had been seen in the pub, and they were, like, completely disinterested. Their whole attitude was like, we're here to make an Anthrax album. If we bump into them, okay, whatever,
Although I really do feel like that's the correct attitude to take when dealing with U2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They kind of, when Apple forced everybody to have their new album on all their devices, I think that was a little presumptuous of them.
Yes.
So it kind of
even if Apple say, "Look, do you want one of their older albums on your iPad?" I'd probably still say no.
Yeah. I mean, Joshua Tree's okay, but it's still like, oh, it comes on the radio, like, all the time.
Yeah, and I really do feel like that just brushing off a meeting with Bono would actually do more to hurt his ego than calling him a fuckwit.
Yeah, that's true.
The biggest crap in the world.
It's like, all right, whatever, man. I know who you are. So getting into the mixing of the record a little bit. Kind of when they got down there during the mixing, relations with Eddie Kramer kind of got strained a little bit. I guess at first when they were working with him, it was amazing. You know, they just sit around and he'd tell them all these great stories about the people he produced. But then they started to kind of hit some problems. You know, they got him because of that classic Eddie Kramer sound. But when they heard the first track that he mixed, I mean, everybody was all in shock. It had a bunch of reverb, the guitars were washed out, and he tried to make them sound like Def Leppard, which is exactly what they said they didn't want. And, you know, he was just making them follow the trends of what was around at the time, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and they were saying that they really got into like some furious arguments with him at one point. I think he said to Scott Ian, "Is your opinion God?" And then he replied, "No," and it's like, "No, I'm just the rhythm guitar Anthrax, but it's our album. It isn't your album, Eddie. It's mine."
Yeah. I mean, it isn't Eddie Kramer with Anthrax or Anthrax featuring Eddie Kramer. It's fucking Anthrax. This record has our name. And I think that's a fair assessment, man. I mean, it did seem like the guy wanted to be in the band and make like his version of the band, and that's not Anthrax. And nobody could you imagine this album sounding like a fucking Def Leppard record? That'd be horrible.
Yeah, no, it would be pretty bad.
So yeah, man, they came down pretty hard on him, kind of about the things that he was doing with the mix. So every time he'd play him a mix and they heard like the slightest reverb on the drums, it would be like, no, we want the drums to sound dry. Throw the effects pedals into the ocean. But, you know, all in all, with all the troubles that they had with it, they got done. They got through it. They made the record. And
how they made the record, yeah, that's for all the troubles and apparently, and you know, for all the, you know, for the time that it took, this really is a standout record.
Yeah, I mean, it only took him 8 weeks to record and work on it, so that's not bad at all. And
yeah,
like I was saying, the album sounds really good, despite all the troubles they had with it. I think the production on it is really well done.
Yeah, no. Like, and even at the start, they're saying, "Oh, I'm not the biggest Anthrax fan. I don't particularly like Joe Belladonna. I like this album."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got. I think this album has a lot of cool stuff, and like, kind of actually we'll just segue into this part of it. A lot of the songs and thematic elements on this album are awesome because they're so directly influenced from pop culture and literature. I mean, so many of the songs on this album have direct references or even specifically written about Stephen King songs. I mean, how fucking cool is that?
That's pretty mad, yeah. Like, and even with, you know, this stuff kind of coming back into, you know, the kind of the zeitgeist, like comic books and like Dread and all that.
Yeah.
This is still just it really does make it's written about a time, a certain period of time, a certain literature, certain, you know, like things were popular then, but are still popular now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, who doesn't know about The Stand or Judge Dredd? I mean, pretty much, you know, people who are into pop culture stuff, you know,
yeah,
they should. I know
yeah,
right
back
now.
Then and now, yeah, it's like you talk about, okay, Judge Dredd was only for like fucking nerds that read, like, you know, what was it, 2000 AD?
Yes.
And now, like, it's pretty much everyone loves Dredd because the last movie that came out.
Fuck yeah, that movie's amazing.
Oh, that movie's fucking so good. Oh my god.
Yeah, oh man, funny story. I've watched that movie on acid like twice.
How fucked? No. How fucked is that? Did you do it like intentionally, or was it just by happen chance?
I don't know. I wouldn't say intentionally. I had just ended up taking acid, and I was like, oh, I want to watch a movie that's like visually interesting. And Dread had just came out, and I had it on Blu-ray. And, you know, all those scenes where they're doing, like, the slow-mo.
Because that movie is fucking soupy without, like, you know, having to take drugs or anything like that.
It is. But, yeah, I just happened to put it on, and I was like, man, this movie is really pretty.
Yeah. It's like I want to watch something that's not Into the Void.
Oh man, that was a mistake. I've also
Yes.
watched that on acid a couple times. Ugh, brutal. But yeah. Anyways, yeah, that movie's beautiful. It's a great movie. It's a far cry from that shitty Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd movie.
And fucking Rob Schneider. What the fuck is Rob
my
Schneider
God.
doing in that? Just like,
I don't know.
this is a fucking aside.
Yeah, I don't know either. That was such a weird thing. Like, why is Rob Schneider in this movie?
Yeah, and it's like, oh, he rocks up to the house in like the first like fucking 5 minutes. So what does he do? He takes off his fucking helmet.
Yeah. No, Dredd does not take off his helmet. Ever.
Yes. Yes.
That was one thing that I loved about the new movie. Is like he kept the helmet on the entire time. He kept that scowl the entire time. Like he was the perfect Judge Dredd.
Yeah, he went fucking, Daniel Day-Lewis with it. He went fucking method.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he did like, for sure for the acting, but as far as like playing the part, yeah. He did.
Nailed it.
But yeah, I mean that's a cool thing about this record, man. That they can have like that little pop culture influence, and like the thing about The Stand too is like I've been trying to read The Stand over the past year and a half, and that's a big fucking book. So the fact that they read the book and then tried to incorporate some of those thematic elements into the songs and just the look of the album is really cool too, because that's a big fucking book, man. It's like 800 pages or something like that. Ugh.
Yeah, no, that's a big boy.
Yeah. I'm not the fastest reader in the world, even though I like to read. But I'm like
I love to read, but I just really do not have time to.
Oh, I know. I'm like 300 pages in, so it's not terrible out of an 800-page book. But
yeah,
yeah,
and they even like Poltergeist too.
Yeah, a lot of people think that the dude on the cover is the Reverend Henry Kane from Poltergeist 2, but there's also another camp that think it's Randall Flagg from The Stand, and nobody will say either way what it is. But I know Charlie Benante has kind of come out against both theories, saying that the cover was just about how much evil there is among us, and he wanted to show that the same type of person on the cover, the same type of people, and then the one person that was sticking out kind of giving you a way of like, hi. But I don't know, because I do think that it looks more in line with the Reverend from Poltergeist 2 more than it does Randall Flagg. Because if you read The Stand, Randall Flagg doesn't look like a priest at all,
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if for all the cultural kind of references that are going on this album, there's really just one standout song, probably possibly the best song on this album, that actually deals with like a serious fucking topic, and that is Indians.
Yes, that was their first music video for this record, I believe.
Yes.
I mean, just for this record, not in general. But yeah, that song has a very, very deep meaning to it. It's got serious, important stuff that I think people forget about, man. Like, I know we have like the Standing Rock stuff going on right now, and the shit that we've done as white people to Indians, man, is just, it's fucked. And
it's hard. It's neither here nor there to say we've done something bad, or it's that they had it coming, or if it's anything like that. But it really just is like a song where and just like history where you can basically how will those lessons that you've learned from there apply, and how does that affect your fellow men nowadays?
Yeah, it's a way of like kind of getting people to kind of look into things more and like be a little bit more open-minded, and don't let the past destroy the future.
Yeah, don't let the past define the future, but don't let it destroy it either.
Yeah. I think it's one of their like I don't want to say best songs, but it's definitely up there.
No, dude, as soon as fucking Scott Ian just comes in with that breakdown, fucking war dance. Oh.
Yeah, that's pretty good. You're not wrong.
Fucking Belladonna coming out of the big fucking headdress.
Yeah, I'm surprised like people aren't like bitching about cultural appropriation.
Oh, dude, it's 80 fucking 7. No one cared.
I know. These days, though, man. Ugh.
Oh my god, you couldn't get away with it these days.
No, no, can't just have fun and write a song about Indians without getting yelled at about cultural appropriation.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, dickhead, we're trying to fucking help. What are you doing?
Yeah, nothing. Nope. Actually, it's kind of cool. Just kind of off topic for a second. The band Fit for an Autopsy?
Oh, Black Mammoth?
Yeah, they wrote a song about Standing Rock and used like all the footage from like all the fucked up shit that's going on over there. And not only that, I think they're donating a bunch of their proceeds to them, which is fucking cool of them to do.
Dude, that band is fucking, just hitting it out of the park with everything they're doing.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of their last album that came out, I believe, but all the albums prior to that were really good. But hearing the songs that are already coming off this album, I'm like, well, shit, all right, I'm back in it.
Yeah, because they started the band, they had fucking John there, on vocals, and then they released 2 albums with him, and I was like, yeah, it's cool. But then he left, and they got this new guy. And I don't know where he's from, but by God, everything has just basically been picked up. That last album, I think, Absolute Hope, Absolute Hell.
Yeah.
That probably was one of my favorite albums of last year, if not possibly my favorite album of whatever year it came out in.
I don't think I gave that one a good enough listen, so I'll have to revisit it and see if I dig it.
Go back to it and like the second part of that album where it's I think it's like Ghost in the River and Hollow Shell and Swing the Axe. Fucking absolute bangers.
All right. Yeah, I'll probably listen to it tomorrow then. So let's see. A couple last things to touch on about this album. Skeleton in the Closet, also inspired by King's short story called Apt People, which I'm pretty sure has also been made into a movie. Like we said earlier, Nice Fucking Life is about John Belushi and his horrible cocaine habit and, it killing him. And not only that, Among the Living was certified gold July 30th, 1990, only 3 years after this album came out, and that's really, really good. I don't think it's their highest charted album, if I'm not mistaken, but it's up there.
Yeah, you'd have to think maybe State of Euphoria or Persistence of Time.
I think it might be Persistence of Time.
Yeah.
I haven't checked on it, obviously, but yeah, as far as I know, I think that's like the highest one. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think it is. Just as a side, and I'm going to put this on social media.
Okay.
When I find this, did you see? I think it was like the mayor of the Bronx or something when the Big Four had that big tour, or they played at Yankee Stadium.
Did I see it?
Or did you obviously heard where they played with the Big Four, like Anthrax, like Megadeth, Slayer, Metallica. They were doing all those shows together, and they did one in America, and they did it at the Yankee Stadium in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And being from New York, the mayor of the Bronx decided to release a statement saying, "Oh, this is Anthrax Day," and in this press release, it was just the most amount of puns that you could make about just album titles and songs of theirs.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
And it is the most funniest, but most just cringeworthy because he's got no idea, not even about how it basically just the side of how to actually construct a sentence using English words, but just you shouldn't be talking about that album in that context. You know what I mean? Oh, it's through a state of euphoria, they have managed to keep their things alive through the persistence of time and through the sound of white noise. It's
my gosh.
Oh, it's the funniest thing.
Yeah, if you find that, definitely post it.
Dude,
that makes me wonder if it was on purpose or if the guy was just really that clueless.
I think it was really that clueless, but he just wanted to just to really make mention of Anthrax. But yeah.
Damn. So I guess the last thing is for being out 30 years, do you think this holds up?
Oh, there is no question that this album holds up. This album will hold up 40. It will hold up fucking 60 years.
Yeah, I agree, man. Because when I listened to it, when Derek was on, I've listened to it a few more times since then, and I've enjoyed it every time since then. I'm
yeah, this is one of those albums where I'll be telling my kids,
yeah,
hey, go listen to this. This will be their dad rock.
Oh, that'll be funny when Anthrax becomes dad rock. Is it dad rock already?
Can't
it could
wait.
be. Hello?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I think it cut out for a second. Yeah, I was saying, like, do you think this is dad rock now, or
Second,
is it...
but I think that's basically a good time to put a pin in it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything for this episode. Thank you so much for all the listeners, wherever you guys are from, all the new ones, all the guys who've been kind of listening since the beginning. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. It's cool seeing this little thing grow and grow every week, and whoever you guys are sharing it with and telling people about it, we thank you a whole lot. It's fucking cool.
Yeah, can't thank you enough. But in the meantime, where can people find you on social media, mate?
Pretty much everything is at Dustin Wildcard, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. I run the Heavy Metal History Instagram. If you guys follow that, it's always me, and that's only because I can't give Matt my phone number.
Give us a like, yeah.
Yeah. And one really thing, if you guys have just 1 minute and you're on iTunes, please rate and review us. It is utterly important so we can get up in the rankings and get more listeners. I know it sounds silly, and I know we ask you guys every week, but just do it. It'd be awesome.
Busy work. That's it's good work worth doing.
Yeah, and if you do it, send us a fucking little screen capture of it, and we're gonna send you something. I'm putting that out there right now. Whoever fucking does it this week, take a screenshot, email us at heavymetalhistorypodcast@gmail.com, and we will send you something cool. It'll be music related. I promise you'll like it. So we're throwing that out there this week.
Yeah, if you do it in the northern hemisphere, Dustin's gonna send you something. Do it in the southern hemisphere, I'll send you something.
Yeah.
I have an entire fucking record library that I need to clean out, and there is some stuff, and there are some fucking gems in there.
And I have a mountain of band shirts that I got from touring over the years, so I'm sure we can find something cool for you guys. So yeah, if you could do that for us, man. I know we're bribing you guys a little bit, but it'd be fucking cool. And we want to hear from our listeners. We want to interact with you guys more, so don't be afraid to do that.
Fuck ethics, eh?
Yeah. All right, guys. So that's all for this week of the Heavy Metal History Podcast. We'll see you next week. We're probably going to have a guest on next week. I don't know who it is yet, but the way we've been doing it is one guest 1 week and then just me and Matt the next week. So it's kind of how it's going to go.
No, I'm looking forward to it, man. Anyway, man. We'll see you guys next time, and cheers.
Cunts.
Be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes!